Alright guys, well, we're about to finish this up. We're getting very, very close. Today should be the last day of actual machining on it, and then it's just a matter of cleaning it up, doing a final fitting, and etching it. So all I've got left to do is I'm going to relieve these upper corners. We talked about that before. I'll set those up in the mill today. I think the first project is to make the adjuster, and I've already had it over to the lathe and marked where I want my post to come. We're going to use a 5/16 18 threaded piece of threaded rod. We'll build us a fancy little adjuster that comes up just a little bit. It's not going to come up very high, but we'll turn a little bit of a shape to it and maybe knurl the top of it to match everything else. And then we'll just put a wave washer on, and we'll have to turn another lock nut for it. I don't know if we'll turn it out of the same stainless stock and knurl it, or for now we'll just put a nut on top. We'll do something when we get that far. Then it's just a little bit of polish and everything. We're going to etch our logo in it, which we're going to etch our name and the date in it, so it'll say D Hill in 2023. And we'll probably just put that right across there. And then we're going to run it through the bluing tanks, reassemble it, and this project will be done unless we do a little box to store it in. So anyway, that's the plan for the day. We're going to show part of it. I'm going to zip on through part of it and not worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and disassemble it, and because I don't need anything except the tool post mount itself for the moment, and we've got to adjust it to do the other little bit of machining on it. So let's see if we can't get this disassembled. I've got a messy bench again here. So one more time, take it apart. Oh, the eccentric won't let it come apart until I disassemble this, and we will have to disassemble it to shave the inside. And the way we're going to shave the insides on both of these is we're just going to shave a little bit off of this edge until we kind of come to nothingness down here. So we'll take, maybe not quite 1/8 of an inch off of there. That'll just give us lots of clearance. And that's all that amounts to, is extra clearance. So the way I'll set those up in the middle is I'll just take both of these halves, I'll put them back to back, align our pinholes in there, and then just by eye angle it up a little bit, because all we need is just a little bit of relief there. So can we get this shaft back off of here? Oh yeah. When we final assemble it, we'll Loctite it. This end has to come off of here because the eccentric on the center pin is it protrudes enough that it won't allow it to go through the eccentric. There are a little bronze bushing in there. So that goes like that, just for reference. We've got that one. Take that off of there, that off of there. And we've got our mount that there again has got our little bushing in there. We'll Loctite these bushings in place when we do final assembly. And see, when we shave these, we should be able to they will normally sit together like that, so we should be able to set them up back to back, and hopefully we can get enough alignment off of there to shave those. We probably can by running those together just like that. So that should be plenty well aligned just to give us a little shave on each side. We'll do that when we get that far. We were originally going to use this for our adjuster knob. We're not using it. It's not, doesn't set up there the way I want. So next thing, I think I'm just going to off camera I'll just take and go and turn this, thread it, and see if we can't get it set up. If there's anything interesting, we'll bring you over, but this is all processes we've seen before. So let me go and turn this, and we'll be back in just a few minutes here. For you, it'll just be a second. I ran along and just made parts. So I've already done basically everything I needed to do. I've got some polishing left to do on my upper arm, but anyway, on my two side blocks, you saw me run them back to back, run the screw through them. They lined up pretty well there, and all I did was just cut my little bevel. I took about, 70 thousandths, probably 60 thousandths, something like that, off of the side of them. If you look very carefully, you can see the top of the machining mark where it was machined before, about that far up, and then it just fades to nothing. And I did that on both sides. This side actually made it look a little bit better. You can see it a little bit higher there. If I can get it there so you can see it. Anyway, that's what we did there for a upper knob, and then I drilled and tapped it 5/16 18 for my adjustment, elevation adjustment on the quick change tool post. Cut me a piece of ready rod that just threads in there, and we'll make adjustments to the length on this once it's final assembled or once we test it. And I just turned me a little knob with a little bit of a knurl on it. There again, 5/16 18. Just freehanded me a little decorative edge there, and I still got to polish it just a little bit, but that's what that looks like. So going together, it goes just like that, and wherever we set the height at, I've got a little wave washer to go on top, and for now I've just got a standard 5/16 18 nut. I'll change that to something different, either a larger outer diameter nut probably will be just fine. That'll match most of the rest of the tool posts. Now, the only reason this has a diamond knurl on it is that's the only tool post I had, or the only knurling tool I had set up that had a fine knurl on it. I could have messed around with the turret lathe tooling and probably got a straight knurl to match the rest, but later on we'll probably go back and do something there. So reassembly, everything goes right back the way it was before, hopefully. There's our backing piece. That one sets on there. That pivot goes on the bottom. Come on. There we go. Okay, now we've got lots of space down here when it's closed up. It's when it was opened way up that we saw the little bit of binding. Let's see if we've got full travel now. Still needs to be deburred. Okay, that's pretty much full open. That looks like we've got just about 2 inches. I don't remember what they claimed the opening was on this. We talked about that, but anyway, we've got space back here. So with a little deburring, everything will gain a little bit more there. There we go. So that's the way it looks fully assembled. Run this back down so that we, and we'll adjust our height here so we don't interfere with our little adjustment bar going through there. And it won't, because this sits almost level. So that's just about the way it sits when it sits in the tool post. So we'll probably shorten this up a little bit. But anyway, let's go over and put it on the lathe and take a quick look at it. Well, of course, as usual, we've got a mess, but we just finished machining these other pieces. So that sits on there just about like that. And just to kind of take a look at where center is. Okay, we want to that's just about center right there, so we're just almost level here. I might be able to go down just a little bit. I'm just kind of feeling off of where the top and bottom lines up with the arms. And that looks really good right there. So I'm going to say that's where we're going to want to mount this to give us our center and our tool post. So that's the way it's going to sit. I'm going to shorten this little stub up another. I'm only going to take about 1/4 of an inch off of there. 3/8 of an inch, something like that, just to make sure I left plenty and it doesn't interfere with anything, so that'll work fine. So there's where we're at. So next thing, we need to make up a stencil. I haven't engraved any tooling this year, so I need a 2023 stencil. I don't believe I've got one. I thought I'd take you through the process of making a stencil, since I had to make a stencil up to mark this, and I hadn't done this for a while, or hadn't shown this for a while. Start off with prepping everything, and I've got a brand new bottle of Developer here. Just so happens it's a brand new bottle, and it just, I ran out on the last time I used it, which has been a couple of months ago, so I did have enough foresight to actually restock it. And it doesn't take a whole lot for these little stencils, because these are just small stencils that I normally do. I've used this same process for probably the last, well, I know since 2019 at least. So we just want enough Developer in here to cover our stencil, and that's going to be great aplenty. And this stuff seems to pretty much last indefinitely in the bottle. When I'm using, I will almost replenish this just about every time that I use it, unless I'm just doing one right after the other. So I'd already made up a template And this is what it is. Okay, maybe we'll see this, maybe we won't. Anyway, this is my little stencil for it. I print these out on the printer, and I do 2 layers to make sure they are dark enough, and I print them up on clear transparency on my laser printer. So there's the pattern for the stencil. And stencil material, I do the same thing. I buy it, and we want to make sure these are clean, make sure our glass is already clean on this, which it is. So we'll get it up out of the way. I've already checked that. And stencil material, I've already cut this. I've got several small pieces cut up there again, since I do enough of these. And that's plenty big for this D-Hill template. Our stencil goes centered up on top of that. Or maybe not necessarily centered, but however you want to have it print out. And that looks pretty good. Goes on, and we're going to expose it for about 2.5 minutes. They say 2 to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. From there, we'll just let it set for about a minute, and then we'll peel the coating off. There's a clear mylar coating on each side of that stencil material. So I'll peel that off, then it'll go into the developer, and we let it set there for, I think, just about 30 seconds. Well, you leave the stencil set for 32 minutes, and then you want to let it soak in the developer for at least 30 seconds. I don't know that it's real critical. And then we'll kind of dab that off with a sponge a little bit. Hopefully you can see what's going on a little bit to at least give you an idea. So we're down to a minute 43. So it's just a stand and wait, stand and wait, stand and wait. And this really all depends on how good your stencil is, or how good your little clear print is, as to how long it takes to develop and all that. I'll normally let this get down to about 20 seconds, and then I'll start resetting the timer and doing that kind of thing to get it ready for the next one. I've done a whole lot of these stencils over the years, and I save them. You know, a lot of the times when I've been rebarreling something, why we've used it to etch barrels for calibers and things like that. So I've got a whole stack of these that I've done over the years. Some of them I still use for little things, but this is primarily what I'm using it for now, other than just my own projects. So we're down to about 20 seconds. I can go ahead and stop that, because we figure they say 2 minutes to 2.5 minutes. We'll reset that and set it for a minute for our next little setup. And that should be about right. So from there we can take we better start this again so we count down that 30 seconds to a minute. And I don't know if this will show up on camera, but you can see a very light impression of what we've etched in there. And I'll normally start peeling up the edges on this, because this plastic coating that's on it is really pretty tough. So if I just start a corner up on both front and back so that I can peel it, and we're down, they say 30 seconds to a minute, so we can get that far and go ahead and peel it off. There's the front side, if I can get it off of me now. And there's our back side. And there we're down to what we've done there. So it goes into the developer, and we just kind of make sure it's submerged there. And we'll just let that soak for another, at least 30 seconds, they say. Okay, so once we've done that 30 seconds, at least 30 seconds, and it's been that, then we can take our little stencil and we can start scrubbing it a little bit. And this is kind of You just have to kind of decide how much you need to scrub and how many times you're going to use this stencil. If you're going to use them a whole lot, you want a fairly durable stencil, and the more you rub, the more of the coating you're developing off. But a lot of times if you do that, it'll take quite a bit to get the stencil to start feeding this etch solution through it and get a good etch all over, because you want it cleaned out in between. So on these, you know, we're already getting close to the end of the year. I'm not going to use this stencil more than probably a couple of times. So we're going to make a fairly thin stencil and hopefully get it so that it'll etch fairly quickly. There, I think maybe you can see that you can pretty much see through the, because we're just washing out the stuff that got exposed, is what we're, or that didn't get exposed. That actually looks like it's probably pretty good. And then we'll rinse it with warm water. These will have kind of a slimy feel to them, and you just want to get rid of that. You rinse it out with your warm water, and then you can go to cold water, and that will help set it. And there we have a stencil, if I can get it up here where you can see it. Sorry, we're here mid-morning. It's really tough with the sun shining through for me to see what's going on. But anyway, that looks like a really good stencil. Looks like it should etch up pretty well. So we'll dry it off just a little bit and put this stuff away. I'll clean up my mess here, and then we'll go out and see if we can't get this etched on. All right, well, normally I will run a little test piece, which I'm going to do today. And we're going to get things set here first, because this is our little electrode here. And then we've got a ground, which this is getting pretty scabby. We're going to have to change that out. Actually, we're going to put both of these on in a bit, but that's the way they go. So to prep this one, I've got my little tub of rubber bands and our little cotton makeup rounds there. I tell you, I stole them from my wife, but I make a trip over to Wally World, or I did several years ago, and here I've still got them left. So, and you can buy the regular little ones that go on here, but these actually work just fine for everything that I want to do with them. There's that. This goes on here like this, and since this is just a test piece, we don't want to I tape these on with black tape, and there's a couple different ways you can do them. You can put them, if you're going to get a quick etch, why, you can put your stencil right on this, and your pad on top of it, or your pad underneath it, and it will give you a quick etch. If you want a deeper etch, you have to pull the pad off and let it gas off. And when you do that, it has a tendency to pull part of the stencil material off. So if we do them very carefully like this on the very outer edges, and I'll always take a new stencil and I put it as far out as I can. Now if you're doing it on a rounded surface, you can't do that quite as well. But, and this is not the ideal piece of material, it's just a piece of stock that I had. So I'm not looking for a perfect etch, I'm looking for how fast it will etch it, how many times I have to let it gas off, and to make sure I've got good permeability through the whole stencil. So our electrolyte just goes on the pad here. And I'll add more as we get to going along, just because it absorbs some and seems to work a little bit better that way. We hook our ground on here, and we turn on our machine, and this is a electromark marking system. I've had it for years. I've told the story about it before. Bought it used, had to send it back, have it reworked, and now I've got a really good machine here that's lasted me for years and years, and I intend to last me for the rest of my life. Now, I set this on DC etch, which is going to be a deeper etch, and I've got a foot pedal here off camera. But what we do is we just put our pad on there like that, and the timer's set in the machine, so it'll do it. And where we've got two lines here, I'm going to do it in two different settings, or move it to two different positions. Actually, we'll move it. See, there's the first time it cycled through. When we look at this, we can see it started to etch through, but it's not really burning in yet. I will be changing this ground wire though. And we can look at our pad. We've got just a little bit of discoloration. It's not really cooking off yet. But pretty soon we'll get this pad to where it's permeated fully in the stencil, and it will give us a good mark. So there's the second time. You can turn the amperage way up, or the intensity they call it, but it's the amperage way up, and it'll burn in pretty quick. See there, we're starting to get a burn in. The problem with that is it cooks your stencils off pretty bad. There's 3 times through, and it's still not getting a really good mark. You want to take it off so it can gas off anyway. And I will normally run these 6 or 7 times to, I've found to be a pretty good time with this setup. Now, if you get a stencil that is just not permeable enough, won't take that solution through it, why, you can go back and hit it with just a little bit of bleach. There's 6 times. We'll do the bottom one now. Hit it with just a little bit of bleach. It will take that, take the stencil and really thin it out fast. It almost acts like we're not getting a really good ground on this. Let's do one more on this date, and then let's go ahead and pull it and see what they look like. We've got 6 times through on the top, and this will be the 3rd time on the bottom. We're going to call that hopefully good. So what we end up with, actually that's a really good etch on there. So that looks like that. I don't know how well that shows. Let me grab a piece of steel wool here. And this is a neutralizer for the etching solution. It's actually a very nice etch on there. That'll work just really well. How well does that show up for you? Yeah, that'll look really good. So let's go ahead and tape our stencil on here where we think we want it to go, which is going to be right there. Except we are going to go ahead and trim this stencil a little bit. There again, normally I would leave this as long as I can, but this is year's almost over. I'm nice and flat, I think. So get round hooked up here. Hopefully that goes well. And then now there's always the chance when you're forcing it through like this and rocking it that you're going to really undercut it and etch it. I'm not too awful concerned about these, and this is for me. This is not customer project anyway, so you know, ideally you should be able to set it on there, and I'll usually roll them a little bit, but I don't notice it for these little etchings like this for it to be a problem. If I'm looking for a really deep, really sharp etching, why, then I might be doing something a little bit different, but for what I'm doing with them on these, especially little tooling like this, they come out really well. I'm really happy with them, and this is the way that works for me. We're going to say that's probably pretty good. Get this all out of the way here. Now let's look and see if we know what we're doing. Take that little bit of neutralizer. That's a nice etch. I'm really happy with that. If we want to see that a little bit better in the way it'll look once it's blued up. Of course, we're using our hot blue. This is just a cold blue to kind of demonstrate what we end up with. And to me, this is not any kind of a blue at all, but maybe you can see our lettering a little bit better there. And if you can't see better with it that way, this is why I don't like cold bluing. This is how easy it comes off with just a little bit of work. Maybe that's a little bit better contrast for you though. But yeah, that's a good etch. That'll be perfect. So all right, I'll clean up my mess here. This is our stencil. I go back in and rinse it out with warm water again and scrub it with a toothbrush a little bit very carefully. It'll clean the rest of that electrolyte out of the stencil. It'll be a little bit discolored, but it'll be a perfectly functional stencil, and now it's kind of seasoned, so it actually works a little bit better the next time I use it. So anyway, that's where we're at. Hopefully you find that a little bit interesting. Next time you see it, and I'm going to just deburr it a little bit off camera. Next time you see it, it'll probably be blued. I may take you along for a little bit of the setup as it goes into the bluing tanks and stuff and how I prep it. But next time we'll get it blued up and reassembled, and we'll be done with it. Hopefully you find that a little bit interesting. Comments, suggestions, leave them in the comment section for me below, guys. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch.